they have a zeal. They have a zeal for God. I really like that idea that Paul can make the distinction now. He says, I see that they have a zeal for God, but it's not according to knowledge.
That's an uncomfortable way to put things, because it's admiring what is good about a person, right?
Yeah.
But that intentions perhaps aren't always enough.
Welcome back to The Move, where we are vibing with the book 10 minutes at a time.
Vibing we are. The next 10 minutes are on Romans chapter 10, verses 1 to 13.
Yes, Lord. Justin.
Yes, sir.
Have you read it?
I did. I actually just read it right before we hit record.
You just read it. Good. Have you read it? Have you read it? Go ahead and read it.
Check it out.
We'll wait.
And welcome back. As always, 10 minutes are on the clock, starting in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. So this last part talks about Israel stumbling over the rock of offense, Jesus Christ. And Paul shares his heart in the first couple of verses.
Yeah. What's his desire here? That they might be saved. He says, man, for my brothers in the flesh, my brothers who I come from, the lineage, my desire is that they might be saved, for I bear them witness. He's like, they have a zeal. They have a zeal for God. I really like that idea that Paul can make the distinction now. He says, I see that they have a zeal for God, but it's not according to knowledge.
That's an uncomfortable way to put things, because it's admiring what is good about a person, right? But that intentions perhaps aren't always enough.
Yeah, right. The man, now you draw something. I remember Andy Stanley, he had the principle of the path, right?
Okay.
It's not the intention, but the direction that determines the destination.
Oh.
So I can have an intention to have a zeal, but did I pursue it by actually moving in the direction I wanted to go? And what Paul seems to be highlighting here is that they have a zeal, they have this intent, but it's not according to knowledge. It's not according to the correct guide. It's not walking down the narrow path that God has for them.
So how do I know that I'm not in that camp, making that same mistake where I have zeal, but I'm ignorant of a certain thing?
Well, this is a beautiful thing, because he continues in this passage as to what is the very word of faith that they did not entertain or accept.
Well, I'll even back up a step, because I don't even want to necessarily say that it's a specific word of faith, though it is. But I'm pushing against the idea that the word of faith is this particular assent to a doctrine or belief, because that's not what it would be.
No, that's not what it is.
But it is this, that they did not submit to God's righteousness. It's that direction. It's that orientation of the heart.
Now, why is it that they didn't submit? And this is verse 3, right? Even before we get to the word of faith and all of that, the reason they don't submit to the righteousness is because they're ignorant of the righteousness,
seeking to establish their own.
So think Pharaoh. Pharaoh is ignorant of the supremacy of God because he was seeking to establish his own kingdom on earth. Israel is ignorant that they are actually lacking, ignorant in the technical sense, not because they're just dummies, like, oh, you're dumb. No, ignorant in the sense of an absence of true knowledge, that there is a gap in their mind between what the law is saying and the righteousness of God attempting to be revealed, right? They actually think that righteousness will come from the law. And what Paul is trying to get them to see, and what he's arguing, is that verse 4, for Christ is the end of the law. And, you know, a lot of ink has been spilt on this, but what he's meaning is that Christ is the goal of the law.
Not end as in it's done away with, but end as in the goal. To what end? To what goal? To what purpose?
Why? Because the law is prophetic. The law is a prophetic call about a righteousness that would come. The law is a prophetic call about a prophet who would rise. Moses says, there is a prophet like me who is coming. The law is prophetic in that it points to a reconciliation that will happen between mankind and God. This is why Elijah has this message where he returned the hearts of the children back to the Father. This is why John has this message of repentance, and he is the new Elijah, because he's embodying the prophetic impulse of the law that is going to usher and pave the way for the King of righteousness to come. So the law does this pre-work of prophesying, of bringing every valley up, every mountain low, so that Jesus can come in the flesh and be the righteousness of God and accomplish, right? So the law paves the way, but the goal of the law is for Jesus to be ushered in. Israel thought that doing work of the law was it. They missed he who came.
Yeah. And this was talking about in verse 5, Moses writing about the righteousness that is based on the law, talking about Christ. This isn't a type of righteousness that you achieve by doing some great feat, as though you could travel to Mecca to achieve righteousness, or that you could travel to heaven to achieve righteousness, or to the depths of hell. It's not based off some crusade. It's not based off some magical, epic quest that you could go on. No, it's not based off of any of those things. What is it based off of?
It's based off of having the word that is near you in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of faith that we proclaim, because if we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord and we believe in our hearts that God raised him from the dead, we will be saved. So in our heart, we believe. In our heart, we believe. And because we believe, we have peace, because our belief in him is counted to us as righteousness. So when I believe in my heart, I'm justified. And with my mouth, I confess, like I come into agreement with his word over my life. And that's what keeps me saved. Saved simply means, not simply, but saved means healed, delivered, preserved, protected, made whole, kept safe and sound. So as I confess the truth of his word over my life, it's the confession of his goodness that becomes the vitality of my life. So I believe in my heart, I speak it out, and I live according to that which I believe and that which I confess. It's not simply this thing where like, oh yeah, I believe Jesus is Lord. And
right. He doesn't only say if you confess it with your mouth, but it's that tied with believing in your heart. So it's not just simple enough to say, oh, I believe that there is a God, because guess what? Even the demons believe and tremble.
Yeah. So it's a holistic thing, right? And I love how it's heart and mouth. So it's embodied, right? It actually takes physical organs in account, the embodiment of it, so that I live according to the way my heart beats. I move according to the words that my mouth confesses. And Paul is saying simply, it's right there for you. It's right here. It's right here. And it's there through what? Through spirit, because this is, again, the whole trajectory of his argument. Romans 5:5, right? His spirit has been shed abroad. His love has been shed abroad in our hearts. We have it.
I wonder what it would have been like to be one of those Jews who thought that they must ascend to the heavens or to the depths below in order to attain to this righteousness. And I'm not talking about the Jew who rejects the message, but the Jew who receives this word and says, wow, it's based off what I can do, but upon the belief in my heart and the profession of my mouth. What do you think it would have been like for someone like that to have that burden lifted off of their shoulders?
I could tell you what it was for me.
Yeah.
Because I know there was a time in my life that I thought I had to traverse an ocean and preach a gospel and see somebody be converted in order to see that as evidence that I had salvation.
You know what that was like for me? I alluded to it at the very end of our last 10, was that for me, when ministry wasn't going well, it impacted my well-being.
Yeah.
So much to the point, I think I shared this story with you, that I identified with my ministry, with my work, with my attaining to so much that when things went bad, it sent me into a spiral. It sent me into a lengthy season of depression, because the foundation upon which I've built my self-worth and my value and the evidence, quote unquote, of my standing with God was dashed to pieces, and it left me broken and empty.
It's interesting because that drives right at the heart of what we preach with Love Reality, right? That identity found is identity sustained. And if you find your identity in that thing, you're only as good as it's going. So if you get the false foundation of an identity, what does that look like? It looks like identifying with your performance in relationship to a set of rules. And depending on how intensely you're following those rules, then that corresponds to how God sees you.
The Jews did this with the 613 or 14.
Or 11, 611 or 613, right?
Oh, sorry. those are the kinds of things that we like to keep as a denomination. We like to look at those kinds of things.
And then we say that our relationship to him is in relationship to that. And what he argues in Romans 6:7, for instance, you're dead to the law, for your righteousness comes and is manifested apart from this, and you receive it as grace, so you can walk out the holiness that this thing was hoping for you.
You mentioned something in church the other night. As we mentioned before, we're here in Portland at a series of meetings that we're doing. And there was a line that you put that was really good, that righteousness doesn't come from the law, but it always does agree with the law.
So,
This isn't a doing away with of the things that the Jews had valued. It still agrees with the law, but that's not where you look to for that fulfillment.
Because if there was a law that could give life,
you would have had it.
Then Christ died for no reason. That's Paul. That's Galatians. There it is.
10 minutes done. We hope you guys have been enjoying the messages. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Amen.